It was a crisp Monday morning in Washington, D.C., and the mood inside the Justice Department was unusually electric. The United States Attorney General, Pam Bondi, appointed by President Donald J. Trump in his second term, stood at the heart of a quiet storm that was about to explode across national headlines. Her sharp heels clicked across the marble floor as she made her way into the press briefing room. Her expression steely and focused, and her hands was a thick manila folder labeled in bold letters, Fulton County. Open Records ACT violation, Fani Willis. Back in Georgia, District Attorney Fani Willis of Fulton County had been under scrutiny for months. Numerous complaints had piled up regarding her office's handling, or rather mishandling, of Open Records Act, ORA, requests filed by journalists, whistleblowers, and watchdog organizations. Reports had surfaced that crucial documents related to politically sensitive investigations were being delayed, lost, or heavily redacted without justification. What made things worse was that most of these ORA requests were tied to cases involving high-profile conservatives, some connected to former Trump campaign officials and Republican legislators in the South. The timing was suspicious. The omissions were even more so. Pam Bondi had quietly launched a federal investigation after receiving a tip-off from a respected constitutional law group. What began as a cautious review soon snowballed into a damning inquiry revealing a pattern of obstruction, manipulation, and even threats issued from within the Fulton County DA's office. 9:30 a.m. Bondi stepped up to the podium before a packed room of reporters. Without the usual preamble or diplomatic overture, she went straight for the jugular. "Let me be clear," she began, her voice echoing with controlled fury. "No official in this country, regardless of party, race, or title, is above the law. We have uncovered compelling evidence that the office of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has repeatedly and willfully violated the Open Records Act." The room fell silent. All pens paused. Cameras zoomed in. "In a democratic republic," she continued, "transparency isn't optional. It's mandatory. And when a public servant attempts to obscure the truth, especially in politically targeted cases, it's not just unethical, it's illegal." Bondi proceeded to lay out the core findings of her investigation. 27 denied ORA requests, 10 emails mysteriously deleted after being subpoenaed for whistleblowers alleging coercion, and one particularly damning internal memo from Willis's deputy referencing protecting the optics ahead of a televised indictment announcement. News channels cut live to the feed within minutes. Conservative commentators erupted with applause. Liberal anchors appeared visibly stunned. In Atlanta, the news hit like a bombshell. DA Fani Willis, known for her fierce rhetoric and aggressive pursuit of what she labeled anti-democratic forces, was in the middle of preparing a new round of indictments tied to the 2020 election saga. Her office had been aggressively pursuing Trump associates, even going so far as to subpoena members of the Georgia state legislature. Now, she found herself on the defensive. Willis's office issued a brief statement of denial. "We categorically deny any wrongdoing. These allegations are politically motivated and unfounded." But the evidence Bondi held in her hands told another story. By noon, Pam Bondi had authorized the release of redacted findings from the Federal Review. News outlets ran the documents on a 24/7 cycle. One of the most jaw-dropping emails included a line that read, "Delay the release until after the midterms. We can't afford any backlash. Frame it as pending review." Social media exploded. #FaniGate began trending on X, formerly Twitter. Republicans called for her resignation. Democrats scrambled to issue counterstatements. Bondi, unfazed, held her ground. That afternoon, in an exclusive Fox News interview, she said, "This isn't about politics. This is about the truth. And the truth is, Fani Willis weaponized her office, and now she's being held accountable." The stage was set. The battle lines were drawn. And as dusk fell over the Capitol, one thing was clear. Pam Bondi wasn't done yet. Just 2 days after Pam Bondi's explosive press briefing, another twist hit the headlines. A whistleblower stepped forward. His name was Marcus Ellington, a former records technician inside the Fulton County District Attorney's office. For months, Marcus had been the silent observer of the growing dysfunction behind the scenes. He wasn't a political operative, nor did he have a horse in the partisan race. He simply believed in doing his job, following the law, and upholding the public trust. But according to Marcus, what he witnessed under Fani Willis's leadership violated every principle he held dear to. In an exclusive sit-down interview with investigative journalist Megan Walsh on the American Pulse, Marcus spoke with a shaky voice but unwavering conviction. "I was instructed, ordered, not to release certain public records to media outlets that were considered hostile to the office," Marcus revealed. "When I asked why we were selectively delaying responses, my supervisor said it came from the top, DA Willis herself. She didn't want any unflattering leaks making their way into conservative circles." He described an office culture steeped in fear, retaliation, and manipulation. He detailed at least 5 instances where files were edited or scrubbed clean of incriminating language before being handed over to reporters. One particularly chilling moment came when he was told to delete an entire email chain that included discussion about delaying evidence disclosures in a case tied to a Trump ally. "I backed up everything before I left," Marcus said, lifting a small silver USB drive before the cameras. "I couldn't live with myself if I didn't." The next morning, Pam Bondi held a follow-up press conference, this time joined by 2 senior members of the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. She confirmed the USB drive's contents were under forensic review but preliminarily supported Marcus's claims. "This brave individual risked his career and safety to expose corruption," Bondi declared. "He is protected under federal whistleblower statutes, and we will ensure he faces no retaliation." By now, public trust in Fani Willis was crumbling. Protesters gathered outside her Atlanta office demanding accountability. Even traditionally left-leaning media outlets like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published critical op-eds questioning her fitness to lead. And it wasn't just about red tape anymore. The violations crossed into criminal territory. Bondi's legal team began preparing a potential case under the Federal Records Integrity and Access Act, along with obstruction of justice charges if further evidence confirmed an intentional cover-up. But Bondi wasn't simply out to prosecute. She wanted to expose the broader abuse of power infecting local jurisdictions where political agendas had replaced public service. "What we are seeing is not just Fulton County's problem," she said in an interview on 60 Minutes. "It's a symptom of a nationwide pattern where legal institutions are weaponized to pursue political vendettas. We will not allow the law to become a tool of tyranny." Back in Georgia, DA Fani Willis attempted a counteroffensive. She appeared on MSNBC, framing herself as the victim of a witch hunt led by a federal government now under right-wing control. She claimed Bondi was using her office to shield Trump allies from accountability, painting the DOJ investigation as political retaliation. But her credibility was slipping fast. More internal emails leaked. One showed a staffer warning that withholding records violates both state and federal transparency laws, only to be told to keep quiet and follow orders. Another document revealed an informal list of outlets and reporters blacklisted by the DA's office. The biggest bombshell came when Marcus Ellington's USB was decrypted. It contained an audio recording of a closed-door meeting where Fani Willis allegedly said, "If those records get out before we finalize these indictments, the whole narrative collapses. I want everything locked down. Use whatever excuse you have to." The shockwaves were seismic. Pam Bondi wasted no time. She publicly called for Fani Willis to be placed under immediate administrative review and suspended from office pending investigation. "This isn't personal. This is procedural," Bondi said. "Every public official is accountable to the people and the law. Ms. Willis is no exception." The Department of Justice issued a formal notice of inquiry, and the Georgia State Ethics Board opened its own investigation. Political commentators speculated that the scandal might disqualify Willis from holding office altogether, if criminal charges followed. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi had become a household name again, not just as a Trump loyalist, but as a relentless enforcer of law and order. The wheels of justice were turning. And Fani Willis? She was running out of places to hide. As the scandal ballooned beyond the borders of Georgia, Washington, D.C. took notice. House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan called an emergency session, inviting Pam Bondi to testify before Congress about the emerging pattern of lawfare and prosecutorial misconduct. Within 48 hours, the hearing was broadcast live to millions of Americans. The chamber was packed, Republican lawmakers sitting tall and firm, while Democrats looked cautious, some visibly annoyed. Pam Bondi entered the room dressed in a tailored navy blazer, holding a thick binder of evidence. She was ready. Chairman Jordan opened the session. Attorney General Bondi, we thank you for being here. The American people are watching. What we ask of you today is simple. Tell the truth. Tell us what your investigation into Fulton County has revealed. Bondi didn't flinch. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, she said calmly, looking directly into the cameras. What we have uncovered in Fulton County is not an isolated oversight. It is a deliberate, systemic attempt to deny the American public access to information they are legally entitled to. Fani Willis knowingly violated the Open Records Act on multiple occasions to advance a political narrative, protect herself from scrutiny, and obstruct transparency in ongoing cases. She presented the USB drive's audio clip for the record, as well as select emails and affidavits from former employees, including Marcus Ellington. The impact was immediate. Gasps echoed across the room when Bondi read aloud the line from Willis's closed-door meeting. If those records get out before we finalize these indictments, the whole narrative collapses. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene leaned forward. So you're saying, under oath, that a sitting district attorney manipulated legal timelines to influence elections and shield her political agenda? Bondi nodded. That is correct, and we have the evidence to prove it. On the other side of the aisle, Representative Jerry Nadler attempted to shift the narrative. Attorney General Bondi, isn't it true that you are a longtime Trump ally? Couldn't this be perceived as politically motivated? Bondi didn't blink. I was appointed to enforce the law, period. The documents I've submitted today speak louder than political conjecture. Facts don't care about partisanship. The hearing went on for 5 hours. By its end, Bondi had thoroughly dismantled every attempt to discredit the investigation. Even skeptical Democrats were forced to admit, at least privately, that the evidence was damning. The public reaction was volcanic. Fox News ran a 24/7 cycle of Bondi's testimony, calling it the most explosive congressional hearing since Watergate. Social media exploded with hashtags like #BondiBombshell, #WillisExposed, and #JusticeForGeorgia. Meanwhile, Fani Willis was forced to cancel a press conference she had scheduled to address the scandal. Her spokesperson issued a bland statement. We continue to deny all allegations. We believe in due process and transparency, and we look forward to a fair review. But the public wasn't buying it anymore. Polling from Rasmussen and Gallup showed that over 68% of Americans believed the allegations against Willis were serious and warranted immediate disciplinary action. Back at the DOJ, Pam Bondi wasn't done. She moved swiftly to file a formal notice of investigation with the Office of the Inspector General. The notice cited violations under both Georgia's Open Records Act and the Federal Public Information Disclosure Guidelines, with potential charges including obstruction of justice, destruction of public documents, misuse of public office for political gain. Additionally, Bondi's office sent a letter to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp requesting he consider invoking Article 5 of the Georgia Constitution to temporarily suspend Willis pending the outcome of the investigations. Kemp, previously at odds with President Trump but aligned with conservative values, took the request seriously. Within 24 hours, his office confirmed they were reviewing the matter. In a surprising twist, even several Democrats in the Georgia state legislature began to distance themselves from Willis. One, speaking anonymously, said, "We supported her fight for justice, but if she broke the law to do it, she's no better than the people she was prosecuting." Back in Washington, Bondi emerged from the congressional hearings a renewed force. Cable news hosts praised her legal acumen. Pundits predicted she would be the next face of a post-Trump Republican movement. Some even whispered about a potential Bondi 2028 presidential run. But Pam wasn't thinking about the future. She was focused on the now. And her next move would be the most devastating yet. While media hysteria and political debates raged on, Pam Bondi quietly orchestrated the most consequential move yet, an official federal raid on the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, IT, wasn't a decision she made lightly. As the sitting United States Attorney General under President Trump, she knew the optics would be explosive. But the evidence from the whistleblower, the email leaks, and now the congressional testimony had made one thing clear. Urgent action was required to preserve and recover public records at risk of being destroyed at 6 a.m. on a quiet Wednesday. A convoy of black SUVs rolled up to the front of the Fulton County Justice Tower. Federal agents in windbreakers marked DOJ Special Investigations Division stepped out with warrants in hand. Staffers arriving to work were stunned, watching as armed agents sealed off entrances and escorted several senior employees out of the building. Inside, a team of digital forensic experts and record analysts began combing through computer systems, emails, and locked storage units. Fani Willis was not in the building. She had taken a personal retreat, according to her office, just 2 days before the raid. But what investigators discovered in her office would change everything. Hidden inside a red leather folder tucked away in a locked cabinet was a private set of memos labeled PR Contingency Strategy. Inside were internal notes documenting media manipulation plans, lists of political targets, and most damning of all, a checklist of delayed and modified records requests. One entry stood out in bold. Delay all Trump-affiliated requesters until post-indictment. Clean doc versions only. Legal risk minimal. The implications were massive. Pam Bondi held an emergency press conference just hours after the raid concluded. Holding up the red folder before a wall of flashing cameras, she declared, "This is no longer about violations of the Open Records Law. This is about criminal conspiracy and misuse of prosecutorial power for personal and political gain. This folder is the smoking gun." The American public erupted. Even outlets like CNN and NPR, which had previously approached the story with caution, began running headlines like, "DA Willis under fire," "Legal fallout looms after DOJ raid," "Red folder fallout." Bondi unveils explosive evidence overnight. The legal debate turned into a national reckoning. Within days, Pam Bondi filed a federal indictment recommendation with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia. Charges included obstruction of justice conspiracy to withhold and alter public records, violation of the Civil Rights Act via targeted suppression of information access, abuse of office. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, facing mounting pressure from both sides of the aisle, suspended Fani Willis from her duties pending the outcome of the investigation. In a brief statement, Kemp said, "No official, regardless of rank or party, is above the law. These are serious allegations that must be thoroughly examined." Pam Bondi, now in full control of the federal investigation, appointed a special task force to continue probing the broader reach of the misconduct. She revealed that additional subpoenas were being issued to multiple counties and media contacts to track coordination patterns. In private, Bondi was methodical. She understood the legal gravity of what she was orchestrating. To take down a sitting district attorney for corruption required airtight precision. But in public, she was a symbol of a government finally holding its own accountable. And while Fani Willis's legal team scrambled to prepare a defense, hiring high-powered DC attorneys and crisis PR firms, Pam Bondi remained one step ahead, calm, collected, relentless. The red folder became a national icon. It was printed on T-shirts, shown in memes, and even displayed on Capitol Hill by members of Congress demanding deeper investigations into other Democratic-led jurisdictions. In just a matter of weeks, Pam Bondi had not only dismantled Fani Willis's credibility, she had ignited a national conversation about transparency, political abuse, and the weaponization of local government. But the story wasn't over yet. One final confrontation was brewing, a televised showdown that would leave the nation speechless. Weeks had passed since the red folder revelation. Fani Willis, once hailed as a hero by liberal media and progressive circles, was now a political pariah under federal investigation. Her defense team was fighting tooth and nail to block the DOJ's charges, labeling Pam Bondi's actions as a federal overreach and Trumpian retaliation. But the American people had already seen the truth unfold before their eyes. And Pam Bondi was not done. The Attorney General announced a bold move, a live televised debate to be hosted by a neutral moderator on a bipartisan national platform. C-SPAN partnered with PBS. It would be styled as a public forum on transparency and accountability, with both women invited to participate and make their case directly to the American people. To everyone's surprise, Fani Willis accepted the invitation. The stage was set in the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., bright lights, a packed audience of journalists, legal scholars, and lawmakers. Millions tuned in across networks. YouTube live viewership crossed 15 million in just the first hour. The moderator, a soft-spoken yet firm legal analyst named Avery Tillman, opened the debate. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we witness an unprecedented dialogue. The U.S. Attorney General and the Fulton County District Attorney will publicly present their claims and defenses regarding one of the most controversial legal and political disputes in recent history. Pam Bondi took the podium first. Poised, sharp, and fluent in law and common sense, she opened with, "This isn't about politics. It's about process. The law doesn't bend for the powerful or the partisan." The evidence recovered from Fulton County, emails, recordings, whistleblower testimony, and the infamous Red Folder, demonstrates a clear, systemic attempt to manipulate justice and control public access to truth. Then she looked straight into the camera. "If you or I did this, we'd be behind bars." Fani Willis did it with taxpayer dollars and the media cheering her on. "That ends now." Willis fired back, visibly rattled but resolute. "This is a political witch hunt. I've served Fulton County with integrity. Have there been delays in document processing? Perhaps. But to frame this as a conspiracy is absurd. This is revenge. Plain and simple." But Pam came armed for more than just talking points. In her rebuttal, she held up a never-before-seen transcript, an email between Willis and a private political strategist discussing how suppressing leaks would buy time for the narrative to take hold. The timestamp? Just 1 week before a major Trump indictment announcement. The crowd gasped. Even Avery Tillman raised his brow. Willis tried to pivot. "That email was out of context. It's not criminal." But Bondi cut in. "Not criminal? Then explain why your office deleted it from the county servers. Why was it only found in a backup file that your IT director failed to scrub?" "We have sworn testimony." The next few minutes were devastating. Bondi recited lines from employee depositions, played a second leaked audio clip from an internal strategy session, and laid out a timeline that clearly showed Willis and her top staff intentionally altered or delayed at least 27 public records requests. The final blow came when Bondi produced a letter from the Georgia State Bar, confirming an active investigation into Willis's conduct. The moderator turned to the DA. "Ms. Willis, do you wish to respond?" Willis's face fell. The confidence had drained. "No comment at this time." Silence. The crowd, stunned by the avalanche of truth, erupted moments later in applause for Bondi. The forum concluded, but the fallout was swift and thunderous. Within 48 hours, Fani Willis announced a leave of absence, citing health concerns. The Georgia State Senate passed a bipartisan resolution requesting her resignation. The DOJ officially filed charges under federal statute for obstruction, destruction of government records, and civil rights violations. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi stood triumphant, not just as a prosecutor, but as a national figurehead for law and order, transparency, and the rule of law. Polls showed her approval rating had skyrocketed. Republican donors began floating her name for a future presidential ticket, possibly alongside Florida Governor Byron Donalds or even Donald Trump himself, if the president chose not to seek a third term under the 28th Amendment convention that was now under consideration. But Pam wasn't concerned with politics. In a private moment after the broadcast, she told a reporter off record, "This was never about headlines. It's about reminding Americans that justice doesn't come with a party label. It either exists or it doesn't. And thanks to her, Americans believed in it again."